Hello and welcome to Season of War. We're coming back to you with another event recap video after the three of us here were at a recent local GT. Just a small one. It was a 16-player event. But the three of us all ended up on the podium. So we're going to have, I think, some good insights to discuss and talk about our games and all that fun stuff. But you guys have obviously seen me on the channel before, and Carl as well has been on. But Ridge, this is your first time on the channel. Why don't you give us a little introduction?
Yeah, for sure. Other than the game that we had with the Seraphon.
Sure. Yeah.
So I got into AOS with just from fantasy. So I had a buddy that kind of got me into fantasy. So I think it was 8th edition then. I think it was actually the last one. But just awesome. Have a few beers, play, roll some dice. That's kind of how the intro was. I played Skaven, so I think he actually wanted to buy the army for himself, but he just had so much of it, and he wanted another person to play with, because isn't that always how you bring a buddy in? So he's like, here, I can give you all these models. So I started building them, started painting them, and I just immediately fell in love. And then the switch to AOS was it took a little bit for the rules and the points, as everyone knows, once that they made the General's Handbook and everything, it started getting better. So I played Skaven, played a lot of just casual games, like I was saying. So I've just gotten to playing competitive. Like, I think I played one tournament last year at X Planet. Both of you actually were there. And that I played a team tournament first, and then I played one singles, and then I think this is my 4th tournament or so. But yeah, so now I was telling you, Jordan, earlier, I think yesterday or the day before, like I'm just like eyes forward. Yep. Yeah, and I'm playing Seraphon, so it's like they're a really competitive, good army right now. So, I hear a lot from everyone, but, if you're not a good player and not learning and not playing them well, you're going to get beat either way. It doesn't matter how good your army is.
They're still a tough army to play, very.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the hero phase, a lot of things going on, so I'm, getting a grip on it now. So I've been playing Fangs of Sotek, as you guys know. Mm-hmm. I'm eventually going to play some Thunder Lizards and try some other lists out, but yeah, I'm just wanting to get really good as I can with this army. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at now, and the GT was amazing. So yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Of course, always happy to. But so as you said, you played Seraphon. I obviously took my Idoneth Deepkin to nobody's surprise. But Carl, why don't you kick us off with just a quick recap of your army, and then get into your round one.
Yeah. So I took my Barak Mhornar KO list with the big boy Ironclad and a whole bunch of bodies. Again, the key points to the list was the Navigator with the half charge and the spell in the bottle, Warp Lightning Vortex, as everybody is aware of.
Always fun.
Yeah, it is. And so round one, I played a OBR list that was a little bit different with stalkers in the battalion that lets them pregame move. With any KO army, you immediately look at deployment as where am I going to put my force and kind of push to break someone's army. And the opponent that I had, Mitch, had 6 stalkers that were the only thing I think in his list that was going to comfortably take out the Ironclad in one go. And so I pushed on the first round because I had the turn choice, took those 6 out, then attempted to just push through. The mission we were playing was Force the Hand.
Force in the Hand, yeah.
Yeah, Force in the Hand. And so I overloaded on one side, got him to respond that way, and then went to the other end with the ships. So the mobility was the key part of that matchup, and I was able to take out his key threat right on the top of turn one.
That's huge.
Yeah. Mobility's huge in that. Yeah. Same. Yeah.
There was a few things that Mitch and I were talking at the end of our game that could have hindered my ability to deep strike, because he has a 6-inch pre-game move. He could have threw up the three stalkers or the 2 harbingers up to deny me the 9-inch space to get into a 6. But I deployed in such a way where I kind of hinted that I was going to give him first turn, so he wanted to take that space from me, and he moved those stalkers up. but then I ended up taking first turn and eliminating that threat. So
Yeah.
it was a good game. It was close, but once your main threat is out on the first turn, it's kind of hard to come back.
For sure.
Mhm.
I guess for my game, so again, forcing the hand, I was playing against a very tanky Howlheart list.
Oh, yes.
So, 2 blocks of 20 Phoenix Guard, the Frostheart Phoenix, Celestial Hurricane with Battle Mage, and then 2 other Battle Mages. So pretty standard, the Endless Spells, obviously the powerful magic that they have. I knew going into the match that it was going to be really hard to chew through the Phoenix Guard, even with Deepkin, and I really was only going to be able to take out the 3 main threats I was worried about were the 2 Phoenix Guard blocks and then the Phoenix. I knew my best chance of killing the Phoenix was round 3, throw 6 or 9 eels at it, buffed up with attacks. And pretty much up to that point, I just danced around on the objectives, and with my speed was able to, outscore and outposition. He did have 2 units of 10 handgunners and 2 Shadow Warriors as well. But again, with how many units I have, I was able to zone out pretty effectively. So I was ahead on points. Round 3 came, and I was able to pretty cleanly take out that Phoenix. And at that point, he just had no speed threats. And I pretty much, went through most of the rest of his army, except for the Phoenix Guard. All game, I just avoided them as much as I could.
Left them, yeah.
Yeah, and they're, I was staying, I was just dropping units, positioning 18 inches on the dot from everything, so he wasn't in threat range of any, really anything throughout the game that I didn't want him to be in range of. And most of the threats that, I did put close enough to him were behind him, so he had to move backwards. So it was really just, for me, a positioning game, as Deepkin, can really make it hard for people.
That's interesting. It's because sorry.
I was just going to say that's a good list.
With 2 blocks of Phoenix Guard, how were you able to deny that much space? Because if I was him, I'd basically clip 1 objective in the center objective of mine, and then the other 20 clip the other objective into the center and kind of push you forward. Because he said, obviously, you don't want to take the fight to them. Were you just dropping threats in the back, and then he had to respond and turn around? Or...
Yeah, a little bit. And he knew with my speed that I could get over him. So if he was to come forward from any of his objectives, he knew I'd be able to jump over to his back line.
Flip.
Yeah.
You would just switch.
And he'd be caught in the middle.
Yeah.
So tough position because, again, being at 18 inches, he can't even attempt to charge. So he's only getting, max 12 inches up, middle of the board. He's not taking my objectives there. And then I'm just jumping over top of him and landing on his. Just puts him in a tough spot. Again, just making sure I didn't, besides a unit of Aetherwings or 2, I didn't really have much for him to get into anyways. And,
counterpunch on
exactly.
turn 3, it was just,
Yeah, his Phoenix had to, come up to take out a unit of Aetherwings to take one of his objectives back, and that just, was reeling him in to expose that Phoenix, so...
that list, I know, I played that Mac Wallach's Hellheart. He likes the spell portal, and then you throw through the Cyclone or Chain Lightning.
Yep.
I don't know with Magic if get any of that, if any of that hit you, but
I
know that was one of the big threats.
Yep, so Magic did, but again, all my stuff is 4 wounds, so...
4 wounds, yeah.
He was killing one guy, and then I think there were 2 turns where he didn't successfully unbind his spell portal, so he couldn't relocate it.
That's huge, yeah.
And I had just moved away from it, so there's not much extra utility there.
Yeah. The Hurricane, is so good. Even its ranged attack is, 3 dice to D3 mortals. Yeah, it's a good list, though, yeah.
Yeah, it was a close game, though. I really only pulled away in the final round or 2. But, yeah, good game. Matt's a great guy. It was a lot of fun. But what did you play round 1, Ridge?
I played this tournament was a lot of me playing new armies. So I haven't played a lot of the top tier stuff. So for me, this was first time playing KO, first time playing Doc, first time playing Fire Slayers, first time, playing all these big armies. So I played Fire Slayers, and Mark Fournier, I think you guys know.
Yep.
He played in some of the tournaments around here. and he's an awesome player. He's played Fire Slayers for a long time, I think. He was running Volstarg, so the one that gets the, I think, 6-inch move off turn 1.
Yeah.
So that kind of helped him, but summary of the game, essentially, it was forcing the hand, so we were deploying the short edges, so he needed to get to my side, which I think he deployed 20 Hearthguard Berserkers at the back line, and then he had 20 with a pickaxe for deep strike, coming in deep striking. So turn 1, I know he moved the ones from the back up as far as they could go, and then he deep struck the pickaxe ones on the other side. So essentially, when he came down with the 20 Hearthguard Berserkers, I knew that I needed to get to that side. He made that his primary objective. So I teleported my salamanders over there, essentially, and took the one side, essentially, left his guys that were at the back the whole time. So we essentially had that little battle on the one side. I got the 3 points because I had more models there. And then turn 2, 3, 4, 5, I just 10 skinks on the back 3 points and just stayed away from him, essentially. So,
yeah. Not fast enough.
No, they couldn't. He couldn't get it all on the board. And turn 2, we already knew. He knew it was over, and we were just like, yeah, this it sucks, but they're little dwarves that move 4 inches, right? So it's a tough battle plan for sure, and tough matchup. But yeah, I don't know. I've played that one before and lost against, I think, Slaves to Darkness. But yeah, I don't know. It once that happened, I just kind of immediately was in, okay, stay away from him, keep my points, and I can teleport. And I think I brought down Chameleon Skinks in his back line turn 2 or 3 and took one of the points that he moved off of. And just with Seraphon, it's a common, I can, just teleporting is really good.
and they really have, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying to say they have really concentrated blocks of power in Fire Slayers.
Yes.
So they can't really spread out super well and zone out. And even like heroes need to stay close to their units. So they're, don't take up a lot of board space.
And he was running a lot of heroes. I think he had 5 or 6. So he's having that within 10 inches. The Hearthguard Berserker's getting that 4-up after save is, and I knew all about that. So yeah, I think I shot down the Magma Drop the one turn, and then the 120 block didn't have a hero with them, so they don't get that additional 4-up FMP. So that helped for sure, obviously too. But yeah, just avoided essentially.
And he had 2 units of camo skinks too, so he had to be aware of that. So
yeah, and he knew they were going to be able to come down as well. Yeah.
I actually talked to Mark about his list because the competitive, meta, quote unquote, for Fire Slayers is always Hermdar.
Yeah.
Which is the fight first with the battalion and then fight twice. And I was talking to Mark, I'm like, hey, why don't you run Hermdar? And he was telling me how, because of how slow Fire Slayers are, he needs to force dog, run extra 6. And even then, they're not fast enough. And he was telling me about how he feels about GHB 2020 with the multiple objectives. And a lot of the objectives are really far away from each other now, as opposed to 2019, which was much more concentrated. So he's struggling. He's trying stuff out to try to mitigate that. And we had a discussion about some potential big allies later on. So we'll see if he runs that in the future.
Yeah, I think he's playing the best for that battle plan. It's just a bad matchup for him. So he knew that. So just sucks. He was playing Volstarg, which is the fastest one. So
still not fast.
No, not fast enough.
Cool. Well, round 2 was Battle for the Pass for us all, and we all then went into round 2 with 1 win under our belts. Carl, what was your round 2?
Round 2, Battle for the Pass, I played Mike Simeon's Big Wah. So he had a combination of Iron Jaws and Savage Orcs. Like I said before, when I play any list, I look at it real hard and I say, what is the thing that can either A, score a lot of points for the opposing team, or B, kill a lot of my units? He was aware that because I was going to deploy first, that I had the potential to warp Lightning Vortex a majority of his army. So he deployed in such a way that was very, very split from each other. And his main threats were in the back corner. So with that being said, I knew that he had 6 big Stabas, which could do quite a bit of damage. But they were so far back that I wasn't worried about them as much. Dropped the Vortex and then proceeded to shoot. But because my guns are 18, 12 inches range, I couldn't hit his main threats, so I intended to neuter his scoring potential. So I ended up taking most of 30 Savage Aurochs out,
Nice.
and he had 20 Brutes left, and Stabas after that, and I just kept porting around the board. It was very, very close. He did get the spell with Bone Splitters, as you know, if it's double, they get to triple move.
Oh yeah.
And they fly. So the Stabas got from his deployment zone to the middle, and then on turn 2 got all the way to my end.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah, just flying, and I'm like,
A bunch of dudes with just giant.
Yeah.
Where's the monster?
Yeah. So he got into my 20 Arcanauts. I similarly, because of how fast I am, got into his deployment zone with my Ironclad, and so we kept trading, and we kind of did this weird dance for the rest of the game where we were circling around. But because I had the speed of the small boat and the big boat, I was able to take it out.
Yeah, and he was running the MSU Brutes, I know too, right? There's like 5 units. Which they're if they could move, like same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just not much movement, but they can be scary.
Yeah. But again, like how Jordan plays Idoneth, I was measuring out. I know they move 4, they charge 12, so 16 inches. I'm hedging on 10 inches because my guns are a little bit lower end.
Yeah.
So I was playing that game the whole game, and he didn't manage to get anything onto the Ironclad the whole game because I was just kind of toileting around. I did fall asleep because there was a point in the game where I had the secondary where I needed a unit close to a piece of terrain, and I deep struck my boat close to the terrain, and it was within 3. So I was actually outside of 3 of that terrain piece. Then at the beginning of the game, I was telling myself I'm going to drop the Thunderers out and cap that on the 4th round to get the auxiliary. I fell asleep. I had them 1.5 inches or 3.5 inches out instead of 3 inches within 3. So I didn't score my auxiliary, which becomes important because it determined what the third round matchup was. So I did fall asleep a little bit, which was to my advantage. But we'll talk about it in the next round.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Cool. So my round 2, again, Battle for the Pass, was against Tyler with his OBR Staliarch Lord list. So he had 2 5s of the horses, and then a big 40 block of Mortek with a Harvester, and then Catacross. He had Liege Cavalos and another Bone Shaper, I think, also. But pretty much this was a real good matchup for me. Now that list is so fast for OBR, but the way he positioned, his 2 horse units were on one side and the 40 block on the other. So he gave me first. I killed one of the units right off the bat from Deep Strike, one of the horses, and then the next turn. And at that point, all he had was a 40 block of Mortek and Catacross.
You can't cap 4 objectives.
Exactly. And from turn 2 on, I actually got a single Aetherwing and my Akhelian King on his home objective. So I had 2 models to just Catacross. And I have the Cloud of Midnight. So even if Catacross goes into my King, he's popping that item and getting locked in combat. So from turn 2 on, I held that objective because he had to go kill that Aetherwing then. But I've already claimed it, so one model to one model means I hold it. That's pretty much it. And actually, the only other thing really is I tagged his big 40 block that was kind of strung out to start hitting multiple objectives. But I tagged it from one end of the line outside of, just on the edge of 3 when I charged a different unit. So his pile-in, he got like 1 model in. So it's like on his turn, that unit was just tied up and so ineffective. And it was like, an inch or 2 out from being wholly within 12 to be able to retreat and charge. But I think we determined that unit couldn't have done that anyways. It's only the horses, I think, that can do that. I don't remember, but someone told me that. But regardless, his hero just didn't quite have the range. So that, it even just tied up that 40 block for...
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's rough.
Yeah. in that one, but his 40 block survived. I was trying to kill it at the end just for maximum kill points and to deny him a secondary, but he got a double back because the priority went my way, and healing 12 guys into that block makes it even harder to chew through.
I'm just looking at it now. It has to have a mount in order to.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah. So I didn't know that at the time, and I think Tyler's hasn't played OBR a ton, or I think this. I know he was a big Slaanesh player before this, so
yeah.
Yeah. But that was my round 2.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, my round 2 was against Ryan. First time playing Daughters of Cain. There was actually 2 different dock lists there, so I had a feeling I was going to play one of them eventually. Yeah, I haven't played, so I know Morathi. I knew about the trick because they're playing Kharadron. I hate -1 to shooting, as I was telling you guys before, but his whole army is -1 to shoot, so that sucked just knowing that going in. And then Morathi has that trick where she teleports and then transforms, so then Morathi can make, I think it's a 7-inch charge instead.
Yeah.
So I knew that going in. I knew he had 3 units of 30 Witch Elves, so a lot of damage still in all of them. I have the Stellar Tempest with Croak, so it's the horde killing kind of burn spell, so I had a couple different tactics I was ready to kind of use. So he ended up teleporting Morathi right into the side. I was screened out nice. So he just hit into 10 skinks. Everything was back 3, so he wasn't able to get into anything else. So essentially what happened, he moved both his Witch Elves up. It was Battle for the Pass, so the middle ones are both worth 2. Yep. And then he's got on his point, he just starred out one of his units of 30 Witch Elves, which was smart because obviously I can't deep strike from behind. So then he moved up, and then in my turn, essentially I did the 3 wounds from Morathi, and then I teleported 1 unit of skinks on this side and my salamanders on the other side, hoping to just push and kill as many of those Witch Elves as I can, take control of both. So I wasn't able to get control of them until the end of 2. So he had already scored 5 twice. So turn 1 and turn 2, he scored 5. So he would have been up 10 to my 3. So anyways, by the end of 2, I just was able to cap the one on the one side, and then the other one I wasn't able to. So we both had really long hero phases. He has tons of models to move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, like my hero phase takes a long time. So we ran out of time like just after the second. I think we were into the third and we talked out round 3, and then we called it the end of round 3. So it ended up being that he beat me on objectives, but I think we're going to talk about it after how the points worked, and I got both my secondaries. So I ended up actually getting 1 more point, but we can go into that after. But I knew I was able to, I killed a lot of the Witch Elves with the anti-horde, and I think if it would have went round 4, I definitely would have killed both of those units of Witch Elves and then put my salamanders and my unit of skinks into his cauldron in the 30 at the back. And I think I don't know. Obviously, it's hard to say, but I'm pretty sure I would have been pretty well off. But you run out of time. That's what happens. So
tough. Obviously, 2 big armies with lots going on. We'll get into that a little later, like you said. But in the end, again, with secondaries and the way scoring worked, you did get the win, just barely by a point, I think, for that round.
7-6. Yeah. So I think I got 5. He got 6 for the objectives, and then I got both mine. He didn't get a secondary, so yeah.
So you would have, got 7-6 there.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
If you were to play that game again, would you? Because you said you went both sides and then attempted to kill the 30 Witch Elves. Would you overload one side and then teleport the other side and deal with that, or are you happy with the decision of kind of going for both at the same time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I would still do the same, but it just the time thing. So I don't know if there would have been enough space even to put all 40 my skink star priest, my skink priest on one side, and still have fit the salamander somewhere. Because the 40 of them were perfect. I teleported them, and then if he charged me, he was scared of the parting shot, which everyone is. They were there. They're fully buffed up. So he knew about it, so he didn't charge me. So then that right away, I have Moonstone clubs on them, so there were 3s and 4s with the mortals on 6s to wound. So when I charged into his witches, I pretty much toasted him. So yeah, and then like I said, the Salamanders on the other side, it just ended off the game on the point on this side. But in certain scenarios, yeah, I think taking over one side definitely would work. But here, I think I would have been fine. But like I said, just the time.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Round 3, Total Conquest, and this is last round of day 1.
So yeah, the thing I was talking about falling asleep kind of came into play here because I ended up being because of how we were placed and how good we were doing in the tournament. I knew at a certain point I was going to face Jordan or Ridge, but because I fell asleep and missed that one objective point, I actually fell to 4th or 5th or something in that position, and I ended up playing. I got paired down and played somebody else, and you guys played each other. But I'll talk about my match, and you guys can talk about how the match between you guys went. I played Skaven, Darren Dallas, who is a longtime Skaven player, on Total Conquest. I knew I had a huge advantage in this because the points being so far apart from each other, I can kind of, again, put my output into a certain area of the map and then try to break that portion, then teleport, and then break another portion. He ran so many clan rats, which are pain in the butt to deal with.
Yeah, you had 80, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, like from a KO point of view and from a competitive point of view, I play Skaven as well, so I identified his 6 Storm Fiends as his main sort of output. And 6 Storm Fiends is a lot of wounds to chew through, and I wasn't exactly sure because he was screening them out and he was going to teleport them out to deal with me. He screened them out enough where I couldn't get all my output out, but I took away I believe 2 or 3 in one go. And I kind of just pot-shotted here and there. He had 2 Warp Lightning Cannons as well. I took one out straight off the bat and dropped the Vortex on Skaven. And he kind of looked at me and was like, "Are you serious? Dropping the Vortex
achievement unlocked."
Yeah. And then we basically danced around. The key point of the game, because we were tied, I think, into 3, was he had a choice of spending a CP to Inspiring Presence his 2 Storm Fiends that were left, or Inspiring Presence 25 Clan Rats, and he chose Clan Rats. Now the math was if he was going to if he rolled a 5 or 6, or if he rolled a 5, he would lose 1 Storm Fiend who was already on 1 wound, and if he rolled a 6, he would lose both. So he was like, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't care if I roll 1 to 5. He ends up rolling a 6, loses both Storm Fiends.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, and then I looked at him. I'm like, hey, buddy, like those Storm Fiends do a lot. Those 2 Storm Fiends.
Yeah,
now you have
the
25.
gun.
Yeah, you have 25 Clan Rats. Like, what are they gonna do against an Ironclad and a whole bunch of stuff?
Yeah.
And so
going with the statistics, that's tough, man. Were they the Rattling Guns or were they the Wind Launchers?
I guess both Rattling Guns.
Yeah, so
and I was within 12. Yeah, I was within
66 shots. Yeah, that's
man. He was telling me in hindsight he should have probably saved those guys because 25 Clan Rats was still high bravery. He lost 15, but there was still going to be around 10 or so still left even after Battle Shock. So he would have 10 Clan Rats and 2 Storm Fiends. I don't know if that would have swung the game because I had so much left. He never dealt with the Arcanauts. He was trying so hard to kill the Ironclad in one go. And on average, he would dealt a lot of damage, but I had Engine Riggers in the back of it, Engine Master, to heal it up. And so he was fighting against the tide of healing as well. So I think he did something like 30 wounds to the Ironclad by the end of the game, but it was still alive at like 10 at the end. Yeah.
Those Storm Fiends, man, it's like 20 wounds before you hit a gun. Like it's the two guys are 7, 14 plus the 6. Yeah, it's.
Yeah. I tried to take them out right off the bat, and they were so tanky.
Yeah.
But again, that 5 and 6 bravery was what did him in.
That's rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as Carl alluded to, me and Ridge were sitting at the top of the standings after round 2. So, end of the day, we end up facing off. And Ridge, this was your first time getting introduced to the Idoneth Deepkin.
My first eel game, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so total conquest, again, pretty spread out with the 4 objectives. It was really big. I'm 13 drops in my list, but Ridge is 14. So I actually had choice against him.
That's funny.
How the game went, I think the big keys. So I ended up giving him first, just to minimize what his army's able to do in terms of effectiveness. And he brought really the salamanders kind of mid-board, and threw a unit of skink on 2 of the objectives for 1 point. But
I wanted to get with the salamanders, I got him up my +1 save from the spell, +1 save from the 3-up with the skink priest, and cast Mystic Shield on them. So they were 2 up rerolling ones.
Yeah.
And the one thing I knew about Idoneth was that I needed to stay in the middle. I can't remember if I was talking to you, Carl, or who I was talking about, because I just know that they come from the sides with the scryer and they get hit. So it continued. That's essentially what I was thinking, but yeah.
Yeah, and you were kind of, we might as well talk through this together. So
that's what I figured.
So big thing, I think, so that was your turn 1. My turn 1, I basically had the choice of, okay, I can take these, 3 objectives and sit outside of all the magic zone, and I have enough tanky units or, the Aetherwings and defensive eels that you're not going to be killing much with your salamanders, but you put them in a position where I felt like I could get, for sure, 1 unit of 3 offensive eels, but possibly the 2 deep striking ones into them as well. I had a good chance. I'm like, again, in hindsight, this isn't the play I make, but this is the play I went for of trying to get those 3 in. And I was able to get close, all 3 units close, using a unit of skinks as actually what I charged into with the +3, and then I kind of tried to hop over them. But I didn't quite get the positioning I needed. All told, I killed a bunch of the skinks with them, and you ended up, I think you needed a 2 to pass your battle shock. Yeah, but yes, you piled away. So I only got one. Yeah, so I only got 1 of my 3 units that were in that combat into the salamanders. So while I did kill a ton of skinks, and you almost could have lost them all in battle shock, my other 2 units weren't able to get their attacks onto them, which was huge. And the other big thing on that turn for me was that 1 bottom objective, you had like 5 skinks on it, and my 1 unit of 3 eels needed like a 6-inch charge re-rolling, and I failed with the re-roll. So I didn't take that objective off you either, which put it a little scary for me.
Yeah, for sure. And even with that, like I thought my salamanders were far enough to the middle, like to avoid that charge, but that +3 to that skink unit and using it as like a catapult, whatever, and then going over top.
Yeah.
I can't remember what you rolled. It was like an 8 or a 9 or something into the unit, so it +3. So it's and then I got away from them with the pile-in. But the 2 up rerolling ones is like really your -2 rend, so 4 up rerolling ones.
My
the shock.
Exactly. The shock in my spears ripped through them and obviously killed all the skinks, but you had 1 salamander with 1 wound left, but the other 2 were perfectly fine.
So then I got away and
you killed the unit of eels that was into them, and then you had 1 priority, and I don't want us to take too long on this game, but you ended up winning priority and then chewing through like the other 2 units, which I had to put into your threat range of all your magic.
Celestial Deliverance, it was croak. I rolled so many 2s and 3s too on the D3s. It was
so
it was a lot of rolls.
Obviously, if there's anything else you want to add from there, pretty much a lot of the fighting, and this is actually, I think, was key to this game. Now, we didn't get to go to round 5. We ended at the end of round 3. I think key for this game, though, a lot of the fighting was in the middle of the board, where I was on 3 of the objectives. Now, I didn't get that on turn 1 like I wanted, but I think that ended up being key, because even though you took some of the objectives back, I then was able to take them back. Another key being you left my Soulscryer on 1 or 2 wounds, which scored me an extra point, which this ended up being a 1-point game.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. In hindsight, like obviously you can say a million things about it, but I just should have Arcane Bolt. I had a Balewind on my Star Seer, which I usually have Croak on, but the Seer was on it, so he could have done another spell. I could have, so many different things. I probably could have just got that one wound, but you don't think about that when you're seeing Eels and an Akhelian King and, you know what I mean, all these other things. The only other thing is that when I teleported the 40 skinks to the middle of the board, thinking with the parting shot, we actually went and got Carl's opinion. Like, we didn't know.
I'm going to grab. Exactly. So there were interesting rules interactions of exactly like the timing of the parting shot.
It took so long.
Yeah. And I ended up I was wrapping your guys so that you couldn't retreat out. You didn't actually roll the 4 up, which was partly to your benefit because it meant you didn't run away. But if you had have run away, probably more than half of that unit would have been slain because it wouldn't have been able to get outside of 3. And retreat, what we had to determine was the fact that you actually have to make a retreat move.
Yes,
which was very interesting.
Yeah,
it says must. So if I couldn't fit, then they would die. So and it was cheeky just putting those eels all surrounding. Yeah. I learned a lot about parting shot.
And even with that, it would have. I think it was still worse for you. Now I killed all those guys with my unit. That was my big unit of 6 eels. So I killed all those skinks out anyways. But even if you did retreat, most of them are sitting outside 3 anyways. So I'm piling into them anyways and still killing them.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have helped you there, but you ended up doing some teleports to the back just for extra points. But really, so we were at bottom of 3. We basically had to speed through, like, I think my turn at bottom of 3 just to finish the round.
Talk out 4 pretty much.
Well, yeah. So I think we were looking at 4, and now the interesting thing was so you had won both priorities at that point. I think at that point, though, with what was on the board, I was dependent on the next priority roll to win, most likely, because that let me score another round, and that would let me spread back out to the objectives to deny your teleports and whatnot with whatever your tens of skinks.
And score with your Scryer, because obviously if I got the turn, he was dead, not getting the extra point there. The King was already dead.
Yeah.
And Crow could have just went again the same thing. He was, mortal. So it's like we were saying, as opposed to the game with Doc. This one, there's so many things in both of our phases. Like even in your turn, I have so many things going on. You know what I mean? There's just
and especially because
it was two top players right now in the tournament. We were like making sure everything was good. We were so many things were happening. So it was
So that all told. After secondaries, the way scoring works, the game result ended in a tie.
7-7, yes.
7-7. So with that being at the time the 2 highest scoring armies, it just made the standings real weird because we already knew just based on 16 players that you could potentially win this with going 4-1 because after round 4 there would only be one person undefeated. And it was anyone's game. So this was the end of day 1. Obviously, a very tumultuous game there. And I think it's tough because Deepkin, like I was saying, I have so much chance to just dance around, but you also have the teleport, right? So it just comes down to, I think, the priorities in the next 2 rounds of who's able to outscore. And I can that last unit of eels can kill any unit of skinks or whatever that's bouncing down, but whether I do it before or after you try and take an objective is the kind of big things, and you can still do summons and that. So
it was awesome. It was my best game by far because it was just I had to think so much, and I knew that with these eels, like I know what they do. I've watched bat reps. So it was something else. I'll tell you that.
Cool. So that was our game 3, end of day 3 again. But into round 4 now. Carl, what was your first game? I don't know.
Look at that. Because I ended up winning my game, and I think you and Ridge were 1 point apart from each other. Based on secondaries, we ended up playing in round 4.
So Carl and I,
Yeah. So me and Jordan have played this matchup so much. We know exactly what each other's armies do, like the capacity of what we can do. And I knew, because he could control my shooting, that I needed to just put as much pressure on him as possible round one, and try to ask him basically questions and see if he has answers for those.
Give me problems, to solve.
Yeah, so I ended up, we were playing Blade's Edge, so it was a very, very narrow deployment zone for Jordan. So I knew I needed to place the triangle as aggressively as possible. Ended up teleporting
the
triangle.
vortex.
Yeah, vortex, and hitting a majority of his army, and basically asking him that question. We're also playing Gairan, and it's not I don't usually look at the realm spells or the realm command abilities as something to use in KO, because they don't have magic, and a lot of the realm commands don't really
help
don't really help me in my army. But this one, I was spending CP like crazy to roll Shield of Thorns. I was trying to stack stuff because I knew Jordan, his army's all about combat. So I was trying to, if he charges me, it's D3 mortal wounds, plus I shoot my last word, my main gun, plus I drop bombs and try to basically push him away from my big threats. I didn't do as much damage as I thought I was going to do in the beginning. But yeah, it was incredibly close the whole game.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. So we'll try to keep it quick, but I guess what were your two key moments for you in the game?
One, I was playing like a madman. I was like, hey, either I get smashed or I win a close one. I was like, I am playing for every single priority roll for me to win. Yeah. And I ended up winning every single priority roll in their game. So I was like, oh, I'm still in it. I'm still in it. But looking at the board, if you had won any of those 2, 3, 4, 5 priority rolls, I would have been smashed off the board. Like, easily smashed off the board.
And that's just a case of this being the worst possible matchup for you, right? We both know each other's armies in and out. We know each other's like capabilities, that we're both like, same level, in terms of player skill. We push each other, practice so much together. But the armies is just, the matchup is so much in my favor that it's so hard to overcome.
Yeah.
You nearly did though, but
I did.
A 2-point game in the end.
I snuck some units off a boat and capped 2 objectives and that sort of thing. But the play, it didn't matter in the end because we talked it out. But Jordan screened me out very, very well, and I teleported my small boat onto an objective, thinking that I could take it from him and be like, hey, I can get to a tie. But it was within the radius of the Warp Lightning Vortex. It had 5 wounds left, so I needed to roll a 6. I'm like, okay, it's low chance I roll a 6 and then a 5 up. I roll a 6. I'm like, okay, if 1, 2, 3, 4, it's still alive. Roll a 5. Okay, it's dead. It's dead. Good game.
Good game. The best part is, well, not the best part, but I'm like, hey, Carl, all I need you to do is roll a 6 up and a 5 up, and then he did. And so
and I looked at him and I was like, okay, good game. Good game.
Yeah, but even there, it came down to just sneaking last couple objectives, and the burning there is huge, obviously. So, but again, like you said, you were in it up until the end because of the way of the priorities, and even your positioning that you were as effective as you could be with your shooting, which is obviously hard against Deepkin. But I think.
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think my key moment for the game. Was actually your Ironclad had, I think, only had 2 wounds on it, and I'm like, I need to just take care of it. This is probably the bottom of round 3 or round 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like, I have to spread out and hit multiple units to take objectives. So really, all I had to throw into it was my Akhelian King and 10 Thralls.
10 Thralls.
So rather than no, this was round 3 because. I was attacking first with everything, and I got to buff up attacks. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to buff up my Thralls for 1 extra attack rather than my King. Or it was 1, or maybe it was 2. I think it was 1 because you were making me spend my command points.
Yeah.
So I buffed up my Thralls, and charging in, again, you have your last word, but I had a defensive eel in combat with him already who was base to base. So when I charged all my other units, I stayed outside of base to base so that Carl has to shoot the closest, and because your closest unit didn't charge, he doesn't actually get to do
Yeah.
the shoot when
That's
charged.
the worst. Oh.
Yeah.
So that was like
it was like
a really interesting rules interaction of
Yep.
just, in my favor, getting to neuter that, which was really fortunate the way it played out. But yeah, those 10 thralls went in, buffed up with an extra attack, so 3 attacks each, 31 attacks, now at 2 damage because of the amount of wounds the boat has. So they like just minced it, and that was a fun moment for the
right
thralls.
Off the sky, yeah. And at this point, because of how offensive your army is, it forced me to spend my gold already, so I didn't have the 3-up rerollable.
Yes.
At that point, maybe you could have survived. So, yeah, we'll probably talk about it later, but that game really, like, I am comfortable with how I played my list and how it is, but there's certain limitations to it, and I'll talk about it later on. And it forced me to reiterate my list and come up with something that's, I think, a little bit better than what I was running in a greater range of situations. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was our game. Another matchup between us.
Barn burner. Yeah.
But not the last one. But then, Ridge, what was your game for?
Yeah, so this was Sunday morning. So I was playing Michael Simeon, the same Big Wah that Carl played. And he's a guy that I've seen around at the couple tournaments I played before, and one of those ones that you just have never played. So it was cool playing him. He knew Seraphon really well, so that was awesome. I didn't have to explain anything to him. He knew what Croak did. So it was Blade's Edge. So this is the one that, you usually want to get up on the points, get all 6 if you can, get up early because there's one burning at the second round of every battle run. So he actually didn't get any of his spells off. I think his Wargogs, he didn't roll any 3-up, so he didn't get any dispelling as well, which he was really trying to do. And then, so he didn't have that much movement, so he actually only capped his own 3 turn 1. So I didn't know if he was going to let me go first, but so he ended up taking first, did that. So then in my turn 1, he was pretty much already in range of a lot of stuff. So I essentially, the one side of the board was the 30 block of the Orcs with the 2 or 3 Wargogs, the 2 or 3, whatever the dancing guys are, and the Wargog Prophet. And then the other side had just a bunch of MSU Brutes. So tactically right away, I was like, okay, I'm going to absolutely flood the side with the 30, try to kill all the heroes, and then deal with the Brutes later. So, and did pretty much that. So Croak cast Comet, Celestial Deliverance, and I almost took off all of the dancing guys called? I can't know why I can't. Oh, Wardogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wardogs, yeah. So I killed, I think, two of the Wardogs, and then I threw Geminids in there. Geminids went through all 3 Wardogs, the Wargog Prophet, and the unit of 30 Oryx. So it was just like my turn 1 was like, I felt bad. I was not felt bad, but he knew what was happening. And then I even teleported my, deep struck my 2 units. Chameleon Skinks finished off the 1 Wardog, killed the other Prophet. So by the end of the turn 1, he didn't have any heroes left. So then I moved my Skinks up, shot all my 40 Skinks into them, cleaned up the rest of them. A bunch of them ran. So I just had the one side of the board essentially. And then I think I won priority, or he won priority, but he chose to go first. So then I obviously just burned the one where all his Brutes were at the back.
Yeah.
So it's one of them. Yeah, and then they could not get to my side. So it was, the name is similar to the Fire Slayers. It was like by turn 2, we were, this is over. Let's see, we'll play it out, try to get your secondaries, like that type of thing. Cool. But same thing, the movement thing with Seraphon, it's like they can put out so much damage in just the hero killing potential. So it was a fun game though, and like I said, I haven't played him before, and he's a really nice guy, super good game. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, so this put going into round 5, so final round. This put Carl was first in the standings. We'll talk about it more later, but the standings were based on battle points, not wins. And yes. Carl wasn't first in battle points. Ridge.
No, it's ahead of by 3.
Yeah,
I believe,
I think Ridge.
Yeah. Or was I? I thought I was in first.
No, you were.
Oh, sorry.
You were
okay, so Ridge was first in battle points.
Because I got 11.
We had tied.
You guys were close. Yeah, that's why.
And then I think Carl was ahead of me by 1, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it was, basically me and Ridge couldn't play because we had already played. Me and Carl couldn't play because we had already played. So that paired you two up against each other, and then me, I'll get into after, but against 4th place, or what was in 4th place at the time. But going into round 5, it's you two matching up.
Yeah. We knew we were playing each other. I've been dreading it. I was been looking at KO all Saturday night. I'm like, I know sometime tomorrow I'm going to play KO. So I was looking it all up. But yeah, you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. So we played Knife to the Heart. Based on kind of the deployment, it was 22.7 inches apart. And the key, I think, in our game was deployment. Because of how deep, or how shallow your deployment is. You're measuring out my deep strike to deny me that deep strike and get into your 40 skinks or your sallies or croak. And I don't think there was enough space for you to do that.
Essentially, I put a line of skinks along the entire line and then measured 9 back from that screen and then deployed everything as close to the back as I could. But yeah, there's just not enough room back there. So essentially, I the whole time I was thinking, okay, the boats are going to come down. He's not going to be in range. He's not going to be able to shoot all these cannons at me. Yeah. But then,
because of the specific sub-faction I had, which is run and shoot, in the first turn, I deployed my boats right on the line. I ran them 6, and because it's 22.7 inches apart, 16-inch move on the ironclad means that I'm actually only 6 inches away from your front line instead of 9 away from your front line, which got me the 1 or 2 inches to touch the 40 skinks, which I think I decimated almost all of them.
Yeah, I think you killed. I rolled a 1 for my battle shock with them too, but I think I had like 6 or 7 left of the 40 block.
Yeah, and I was marching up the board with my Arcanauts, and I think after the round 1, I was feeling confident. But then you thought about this crazy plan that you're gonna do. Talk about your crazy plan.
Yeah. So after turn 1,
sorry guys, worth noting. Mission was Knife to the Heart. We hadn't said that. Knife to the Heart, 1 objective each. So, tough one.
You gotta essentially get both. But even after this first turn, I actually had a really good hit back. So with Croak, I think I killed the Ironclad.
Heroes,
I threw Geminids through. I threw Celestial Deliverance. I moved the Sallies up buffed. I shot completely with them. Oh, what happened? Yeah, remember, because I took him down to 1 wound. And then at the end of 1, I thought, shit, I didn't kill him. But then you're like, man, turn 2, you're going to move your Geminids.
Yeah.
So I moved the Geminids, and that killed the Ironclad. But then I lost. So I lost priority turn 2, which was huge. And then turn 3, this is at the end of turn 2, I had this plan that a lot of my stuff was pretty much killed because you got right into me.
Yeah.
So I could have essentially teleported Croak over to by your point on the Balewind. And then if I could have
one priority.
Done enough damage, and then I just needed to win priority turn 3 because he would have done enough damage to kill the
10 Arcanauts.
10 Arcanauts and then the Navigator. And I had 10 Chameleon Skinks back there too, which were coming in to shoot. Then if I won priority turn 3, I could have summoned 10 Skinks onto his point, which would have denied him from holding his own point. So then it would have had to go to turn 4, which if you know the point system, it wouldn't have been a major 10-0 win. But then Kyle rolled another 6 for turn 3 priority.
6 is the priority. Actually, in the whole tournament, all 5 games, I didn't lose priority. Like game 1 to 5, didn't lose priority. I lost priority once, but it was like when I already had tabled my opponent. So
the opposite of Jordan, essentially.
But,
I didn't mention it, but I had only won any priorities. The whole tournament, the only priorities I won were in my round 2 against OBR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I actually ended up rolling my opponent's die like Simeon. I was like, can I just roll your die to see if it's me or my dice? I ended up rolling his dice, and we switched dice, and I was still getting priorities. So I guess it's just me. It's my weekend.
So at the end of that, I think, so it ended up being 10 or 11-1. I think you got one of yours. So I got the 1 priority for killing the Navigator, which actually ended up mattering, like when we talk about like the podiuming and the placing and stuff. But yeah, it was awesome for me. You know what I mean? I haven't played Carl either. I've seen you at a bunch of tournaments, and I'm just meeting you guys in this pretty much this year and actually hanging out and playing games.
Yeah.
It was bound to happen that we were going to play each other. So I'm glad that it was in such like a us having such a good weekend. My first GT as well, so it was so fun for me. And like I told Jordan, I'm addicted now. I feel bad for my girlfriend because
you gotta come practice with us more.
Yeah.
See you weekends.
Yeah.
All right, so
round
5 for me. As I said, so because I had played both these guys, I got paired down, which would have been into Daughters of Cain. So actually, Ryan, another teammate of mine and Carl's, and that game, it's like, the last thing I want to see on Knife to the Heart is 90 witches surrounded by a cauldron sitting on his objective, and that's exactly what I got. And game started pretty quickly, and it was obvious that he's not even going to move. He's not moving off the objective. Now again, he's playing Kharadron, so I know he has the teleport. But I'm so MSU. I have the Aetherwings. I have 20 Thralls. I've zoned out 18 inches around my objective. So even if he teleports something, it's not getting to the objective at all. So and he didn't even try. He threw Morathi up as a distraction, and just to make me deal with it. But pretty much I knew I wasn't really going to have much of a chance. But the play I went for, again, he has those 330 blocks of witches with, they had the shields and around the cauldron, so they're all on 4-up saves. And then the, 5-up afterwards or 6-up afterwards.
Yeah.
So all I ended up doing was turn 2, I actually threw in 6 eels to take out one of the 30 blocks. It had maybe 8 models left after. Knowing that I'd be sacrificing them, but to take one of those blocks because I actually was hoping if I won priority, I would give him the turn. I didn't win priority, but he took the turn, which meant another 30 killed those guys. But it put me at the bottom of 3, where I then went in with my other unit of 6 eels, or another 6 eels, and wiped out one of the other 30 blocks, and then was in a position where if I got priority, I would then be able to round 4, wipe out the last 30 and win the game. That was what I felt was my best play. I couldn't commit everything at once because I had to keep enough stuff back to screen and zone, and exactly, keep that in mind. So I think my plan was as effective as possible, but then again, when I was going for, I needed the priority, 3 into 4 to get a double turn, but again, I didn't win any of those priorities that game. But I knew the secondaries I had planned in advance. Actually, me and Carl talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about it.
With Knife to the Heart being round 5, I knew I was going into that round with 2 priorities saved for it, which is the one that you have to hold your own objective for 2 rounds. Rounds, super easy on Knife to the Heart. And then bait, super easy. So the 2 easiest ones I saved for that mission. One of Ryan's was the one where you have to, it's like seized round, or one of the terrain ones where you have to end battle round 4 next to a piece of terrain that you choose at the beginning. Yep. So I knew he had that one. And if you don't win, if nobody wins in Knife to the Heart, the tiebreaker is secondaries. So I knew I left a unit close enough to that. But Ryan actually made a very smart play in terms of deep striking Canary and teleporting Small Hero to like opposite ends of that objective. But he didn't account, I had, so I actually had 9 eels on his home objective. So his big sisters, not having the double, killed killed the unit of 6, but they didn't touch the unit of 3. And even if they got into them, I would have had the bodies left to, and in round 4, retreat and charge. So ended up actually bringing off of his own objective down to like the corner of the table to hit his leader with 1 unit of eels, and the other one hit the Canary. So I managed to take out the 2 units he had there, trying to get his secondary to give me the minor win, and then scoring. Yeah.
You guys didn't even end up fighting for the objective. You guys were just fighting for secondaries, which is an interesting sub game for Knife to the Heart for sure.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And again, I put a lot of work into planning my objectives, my secondaries. Secondary objectives for this tournament, we'll talk about that more at some point, I'm sure.
So that ended up me, because we were tied, because I was talking with Carl the whole time. Like, we knew you guys were playing down there, and our game was already over. So we were doing the math, and I'm like, as long as Jordan can make it so, or like, negate him from getting his secondaries, then I will stay in third. Because I think if he would have got one more, he would have had, because we tied in points, but I had more wins.
Okay,
Correct.
yeah.
So that play right there. Yes.
that terrain thing was what gave you the podium. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, that all said, Carl getting a big win against Ridge, which is not personal, but that's what I wanted to position wise, that would be best for me if Carl had a big win there. So Carl got the big win and actually was ahead of me by 3 in battle points. So Carl came first, I came second, Ridge came third. Again, so Ridge, you would have been 3-1-1. Carl was
4-1.
4-1. I was 4-0-1. So we were all like, none of us had 5 wins. It was all super close. Again, small event in 5 games means a lot of the players in the same kind of bracket or place in the standings are all playing each other multiple times.
Yeah.
But it makes for a lot of fun, I found, and actually very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because at any point, like in any other GT, if I was to lose to you in round 4, I'd be like, okay, I'm playing for second or third. But because of how small it was, I was still playing for first, even at the end.
Yeah. So on that note, so there were a couple big things. So this was not your typical like 20 null or 10 null system for scoring. What this event had was a tiered scoring system. So it's not just like major win, you get 10. Minor loss, you get 0. It actually, depending on the score differential in terms of victory points, like we alluded to earlier, actually affected how many points you got. So there were like probably 3 or 4 brackets for each mission. And actually, if you smashed your opponent out of the water, you got your max points. But if you only won by 1 or 2, like happened in mine and Carl's game, actually, and mine and Ridge's, it was like 6-5 was the battle points you were getting from those events. So it kept the field really close together also. Yeah. So there was that mechanic, and then obviously, again, the battle points being the main ranking system, not wins. So pairings were based on wins, but the final rankings were based on the battle points.
Made secondaries big as well, like, because as we were talking, like, you beat me 6-5, but I got both my secondaries and you got 1, so we tied.
Yeah.
And like that. Yeah, that's why I really wanted to like make sure I got my secondaries. Like usually they're not as important or as integral, but here they were.
It's very
they important. Not only affected because they always affect your standings typically, but here they actually affected the game outcome and your standings.
Yeah.
Because so they were points that went into, with the tiered scoring being so close in those close games, it actually could affect whether a loss became a tie or a tie became a win.
Yeah.
Or a loss became a win, like with Ryan.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah, which seems crazy. And like we were talking, I think it maybe should have been 7-5 instead of 6-5.
Yeah, so
definitely if you win, maybe get 2 more, or I don't know. Yeah.
I think so. That format, sticking with what it is, and talking with Josh, the TO, who's an awesome guy and ran a great event, needs a little tweaking. This was the first event he's run it since the new GHB, so that's understandable. But overall, just in terms of, I'd ask you guys, what did you think of that system? Because it's not the typical system we see. Again, very different than your standard like 10 points or 0 for a major loss. What did you think of this format and what it kind of did to the game and the event?
Yeah, do you want to go, Carl, or you want me?
Either, both.
No, go first.
Yeah.
Go first.
Okay. So I have only played this is my first GT, so I've never really played in any other system than you get 10 for winning, you know what I mean, the other system essentially. So I actually really liked it. I think, like you said, or we just said, we can kind of tweak it so you get a little bit more for winning. But I really like that when you have a close game, you're actually still getting rewarded for it, where sometimes you lose by 1, but you get the major loss, you get 0 points or 2 points or whatever it is. So in that way, I really, really like it. But like I said, just some minor tweaks But yeah, that's generally what I think. But
Cool. Carl?
I'm in the same boat. I generally like it, but it is difficult to balance because it gives certain battle plans more weight than others if you mess up the differences between. Like for example, mission 2, which was
Battle for the Pass.
Yeah.
Battle for the Pass. The difference between the scores were not. Everything else was by a set amount of score. So if the difference was 1 to 3, it was one way, and then if it was 4 to 6, it was another. With Battle for the Pass, it was times 2.
More than double, yeah, that's
More
right.
than double, more than triple, and in order to score max points for Battle for the Pass, you had to quadruple the points of your opponent. And that just comes from testing. I do like the tiered scoring. It needs a little bit more tweaking, but I was happy with it, and it did end up being to my favor, because in any other tournament, I would have lost to Jordan because he didn't have any losses on his record.
So that's why, okay, so that turn 2, I remember seeing that now, doubling and tripling.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I lost 13-9, so that's why it was,
So close,
okay.
And that, that was I think I was the only one who got, I didn't even get the top tier. I got times 3, actually. I was the only one who got that because I had won 33-11, so I was like exactly 3 times. Which was rare, and just because of the good matchup and fortuitous game, way it went for me.
It felt a little weird for me because I was 1 point off from doubling. I was like, I just needed 1 point, and then I would have been in the next bracket to score. But like, if with some more tweaks, I think it does reward some close play. I'm happy with the style.
Yeah.
What about you, Jordan? What do you think?
I liked it. I would just echo a lot of the same sentiments. Our team was actually talking a lot after the event. We had a pretty heated discussion of like, some of us loved it, some of us hated it. So, but in terms of constructive and just trying to figure out a better system. So I like it, again, that the fact that it rewards having a close game. So if you get blown out, you're getting no points. But if you lose by 1 or 2 points at the bottom of round 5, you're not getting 0 points, which I think is very unfortunate. Especially in 3 to 5 game events when you have enough players that not everyone's getting to play each other, especially in round 3 game events. It's like it's so unfortunate for someone to lose like on the top table in the final round, a close game, and that punishes them so hard, and they end up dropping from 2nd to 5th. So I like the systems. The idea of the system where it rewards you for playing those close games and keeping it tight. So hopefully it counts for more player skill and like kind of list success and playing the mission well.
Not as much like sneaking in and getting lucky kind of thing.
Yeah, like exactly.
It's because the issue we identified is like the person who loses a game the first round.
Yes.
Is a good player because let's say they get matched up or something, then they get paired lower and they start to smash people. And
so you last tournament.
That's what I usually do. But yeah, then you sneak into 3rd or 2nd, which doesn't feel the best, even as the person who sneaks into there.
Which and they should definitely have the chance to, but it's just. And they would still have the chance to, but it's really just rewarding you for keeping the game close and being in the game at the end. Where if you get blown out and you're not in it, then you're not getting any extra points. But we were talking as a team again and kind of thinking of new formula. And actually, we have a small 10-person event coming up that we're all going to be at. And we're actually planning to test out a new idea for scoring, which is based off this scoring system, or the idea of the tiered scoring. But basically it's going to be the 10-0 system with the caveat that if the game is only decided by like 5 victory points or less, the person who loses only gets a minor loss. So technically there's the outcome of that game, the players are getting more combined points than there typically would be. but it's rewarding you for keeping a close game.
Close. Yeah.
So again, and this is going to be a 3-player event coming up, so that we want to test it in. So it'll hopefully help, those people who do have 1 or 2 losses or whatever. If they can keep them tight and they play their games and they're in it to the end, it doesn't punish them as hard as the people that get blown out, which I think is fair.
Yeah, I like that.
And what we also kind of why we came to this conclusion, as opposed to the true tiered scoring that went from like 10-0 to like 6-4 or whatever, is that it doesn't necessarily feel good for the person who wins. To like, we all know and love the standard system. So to have a different system that punishes you for winning a close game just isn't a feel good. So trying to like be like, okay, the winner still gets max points, but the loser gets a minor win if they keep it close and it's a tight game.
Minor loss. Yeah.
Minor loss, sorry.
In the old system too, especially with the new GHB 2020, you're rarely going to have a minor win. Like when it goes to auxiliaries or whatever, like that's never going to happen. So, I love that.
Yeah, the minor win and the minor loss aren't relevant anymore.
No.
Not as no. I've never really seen it happen.
Yep.
No.
Unless a mission like Knife to the Heart, but
yeah, other that's the only one that unfortunately doesn't work as well.
You rarely see it.
Yeah, the thing that we identified as well is with the true tiered scoring, some armies are taken out of contention.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Gloomspite gets with 120 stabas, they're not gonna blow you out of the water.
No.
What they do is they sit on objectives, they try to outscore you, and they just hold and hold and hold. So in a tiered scoring system, an army like that wouldn't even work. Like you wouldn't even try to take that. Or some of the other like Blight Kings, like 20 Blight Kings aren't good in the tiered scoring because they're not blowing people. It rewards armies like Feck, which can just run up the board and table you. So it kind of rewards the Alpha Strike. But with this kind of closer kind of scoring that we're going to is even those Gloomspite Gits players or those Nurgle players, if they win, they're still going to get the 10 points.
Yeah.
But
I just can't stand I get that, but 120, like you're not finishing your turn 3. You know what I mean? Like
you haven't seen 300 Noblars yet. You haven't seen 300.
I have not. I guess if the player is quick, and it kind of depends. But
one of our players plays those types of lists, so.
Another thing actually worth noting, and we're going to announce this obviously for the small event, but the other new change that we want to test out is actually. Based on this GT, we saw a lot of the sports storing wasn't really communicated effectively in terms of how people should be storing. So it was a 1 to 5 where your like average good game should be a 3. A 4 is like an amazing game, that's like your best game of the tournament, and the 5 is like you only reward a 5 if this is like the best game you've ever had. Like the most fun game you've ever had, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's hard. It doesn't translate. That intention to what people do. Where people were like, 5 was the automatic unless there were negatives. So people would auto score 5 unless it was like, okay, this guy, there was a little bit of tension because it was a close game, so we'll go 4, or less or whatever.
I think on Sunday, Josh, he switched that, like it went to the papers, because at first he was asking us like verbally, and it's like no one wants to say 1, you know what I mean? So
that was
once the papers came out, it was a bit better, but I know what you mean. I gave 5s to most of the guys. It's like, good guy, it was a good game.
And that's the thing, and it's like in the 1 to 5 system like that where you just are rating your opponent, both players are going to give each other 5s, so it doesn't really come across, it doesn't really judge sports effectively. So what we're going to do is do like, and this is actually talking with Josh after, a great idea that we're kind of building on, where judging points or the sports score after is still out of 5, but the match starts at 3, and you can only do a +1 if the opponent was a lot of fun, or a -1 if they were like a grump. And then the other points are like, if your game finished in round 5, you get +1 point. If your game finished in round 4, it's 0. Round 3, it's -1. Round 2, it's -2. So
That's so cool.
that actually
It
incentivizes both players to finish at least to round 4, so they're not getting negatives, but finish to round 5 to get max points.
Wow.
And the point system is, it's going to be like, the rankings is going to be like 80-20 or 70-30 of battle to sports scores, so that the sports do affect final standings, which
Nice.
they should.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I had no idea. I'm pumped.
And again, this is talking with Josh the TO from Red Harvest GT. We're all in a pretty tight group here and love bouncing ideas off each other. So we were talking about that idea, and he brought that up. So we're going to steal it and adopt it and test run it here.
Yeah, and we can test it and then tell him how it goes, and
exactly.
maybe tweak it in the future where it's even better.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out us on the Honest Wargamer stream too.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable hearing that. I watch it every Monday, and I just couldn't believe I was just in my normal painting in my pajama pants, and and then you hear, there's a tournament in Canada, the Red Harvest GT. I was like, what the? And then he talked about our list and everything too. That's a message you guys were doing. It's like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah, we got some good AOS players up here. Up in
And
is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I kind of just want to talk about, I kind of mentioned it briefly, kind of my takeaways for my specific army, and what I want to improve on in the future.
Definitely.
So the thing that I identified with my list is the need 100% to go first. I didn't have any flexibility in my list in order to go second and maybe take that double. Because I wanted to deploy the Vortex so often that I needed to take first. So I'm tweaking my list at the moment and going for something that allows me the flexibility to go second. Everybody wants to go first and the alpha is strong, but against somebody like Jordan's army where the alpha didn't take a significant portion of his army away, I was in trouble already. So that's kind of my takeaway from the tournament and how I'm going to play in the future. Try to give more away. And
I thought right away, when in our game like the final game 5, I was like, if he gives me turn, I'm definitely going to drop down both units of Chameleon Skinks, shoot the Chemist, because I obviously don't want that Vortex. So that's people are obviously thinking that right away.
Exactly. Yeah. So
cool.
that's my takeaway from the army. Again, I would like to make a list that can potentially compete with Idoneth, and I think I'm close. Yep. So that's kind of
your worst matchup, and it's so often in all of the events we go to because I'm playing it.
It's literally if I can compete with Jordan's Idoneth like 50-50, like what other army presents that challenge to me, and what other player presents that challenge to me? If I'm playing any of the other armies out there, like
You're more comfortable.
The deck isn't stacked that highly against me, and so if I can win 50% of the games against Jordan, like I'm set.
Yeah. Are there some other -1 to hit armies that are played by a good general? Maybe.
Perhaps. Perhaps.
There's some possibly, but I know what you mean. Yeah, the eels for me too. Like I guess I can just go into my kind of experience. Playing against the eels was super tough. But for me in general, I just learning armies. So I've watched a lot of battle reports and that type of thing, but I found out how crucial it is to know lists. Like I was reading some of the lists before playing them, but knowing what does what. And even like the little thing that happened in our game, Carl, where I thought you were going to fly high for sure. I need to learn to kind of think more about, don't just get hung up on one thing. I tend to get hung up on one thing and think that's what's going to happen to me. So I go a whole plan against that, and then that doesn't happen, and then I'm screwed. You
plan for the main big thing the army wants to do, but you don't know all the other little things they can do.
And that's just experience. Like you said, this was your 4th tournament, and to podium in a 16-player event, and most of the players in that tournament were very, very competitive and have been playing tournaments for so long. But it's your 4th tournament, and you're already like podiuming. And the other tournaments we play at, also, you're always in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other than that,
your AOS career.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. I think you said you finished third in your first GT as well, so that made me feel great.
and then there's me. Oops.
No, yeah, that's other than that, just learning armies, learning my Jordan, you said too when we were chatting, just playing one army. So I already want to try like Thunder Lizards and other things, but I'm just going to play Fangs of Sotek for a couple, at least 5-6 more tournaments, probably even more. But I just want to really get this army down and what it does. And I already have a few tweaks with a few things, but and it kind of depends on tournament wise. Like if certain battle plans are there, you're going to tweak a little bit. I find with the GHB 2020, but just getting to know my army a bit better and just becoming a better player.
I think that is so key. Like if you're getting enough games in outside of events, sure you can mix it up and play different armies and that. But in terms of you need to in terms of performing at the top competitively, consistently, event to event, you need to be getting consistent practice, with your main army, and taking it to events for months and months and months to really be able to perform at the top level consistently. I've now been playing Deepkin at events for a year and a half. I get at least one game a week with my Deepkin in, and I'm playing, 2 or 3 games a week often, with different armies and against different opponents, just, doing fun casual games or battle reports or whatnot. It's like knowing your army is key, and knowing it inside out is, unbelievable. And you'll look back even after 2 months and you'll be like, oh, last week I've learned so much since that event. And that doesn't stop. It keeps going every event, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, like, the interesting thing is, like, it gets to a certain point where you know your army so well, and Jordan and I talk about this so much, where he's like, he'll message me in chat and be like, oh my god, I have this huge tweak to my list. And it's like, I change one offensive eel to one defensive eel. I'm like, Jordan, that's not a huge tweak. That's just changing one eel to the other. But he's so practiced with it that's basically the only thing in his army that can change is he's already honed in on the best.
And now GHB 2020, again, like you guys have said, mission packs are going to affect it. But for the most part, in terms of like the standard average mission pack, it's like my last 3 tournaments, there's been like 1 unit change between each of the events, like 1 or 2 at most. So it's like, again, consistency and repetitions are huge.
And the thing about practice games too, because everyone talks about, this is how many armies, or this is how many tournaments I've gone to. But the thing is, because you want to win in tournaments so badly, you always tend to stick to what you know or what the game plan is. In practice games, you can take risks and see what those risks will pay off. So, for example, like Jordan and I just played a practice game just recently, and I wanted to test giving him first turn or giving the turn away instead of taking it all at the same time. During a tournament, I would never do that, just because this is what I know, and this is what I'm going to do. Exactly. Like, why would I risk the whole game to do something risky? But in practice games, because there's nothing on the line, you could test and experiment things that aren't in your habit.
Yeah, I do. I've been doing that with Zach. That's what I play. He plays an Archeon -1 to hit list with Nurgle and all that good stuff. And he's beat me the last few times, and I've been just going through different scenarios. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yep, that's a good point actually. Battle report coming out next on this coming Monday was me and my brother right before the event.
Sorry,
not
my battle
ours,
report.
no. But me and my brother testing Knife to the Heart because I hadn't played that mission in GHB 2020, so I wanted to play it during the event. I went into him super hard on turn 2. From that, take away from that game is that, okay, I need to delay a little more, hit the castled up army in Knife to the Heart in a different way. That directly translated to how I played against Daughters of Khaine. Different army completely, but also a castling army. And I had to peter out my attacks to not swing for the fences to make sure I could play in case and still win or tie if I don't get the double or whatever I need to win. So the practice and practice in those situations, and if you can practice against the armies that you might face, and especially the strongest ones, is so key. But tough. But the people who are able to get those practice, have friends with different armies, being able to be consistent in practice, and obviously just gives you an advantage.
Yeah, I haven't played FEC yet, and I haven't, I know your brother plays FEC and plays some other Death. None of my friends, no one plays Death.
Yeah.
So I haven't played Bone Reapers either. So
cool.
Yeah,
we'll have lots of games for you to, again, you gotta come down and practice with us some more.
Yeah, for sure.
I got Bone Reapers.
Yep. I have Bone Reapers now too.
Oh God, yeah, you do.
Only one list though. But anyways, I think that's pretty much it for the show. Just before we wrap it up, want to make a cool announcement. Just kind of having previously talked about how much cool, awesome talent we have up here in Canada. Just for anyone watching, if you are local, well, not local, but if you are Canadian, if you are in Canada, we are actually announcing very soon Team Canada for ETC 2021. So there's going to be an application process. I'll actually be putting up information on the Season of War website, just because that's an easy place to host it, for applying and all that fun stuff for hopefully, assuming ETC 2021 happens. But we're preparing now, as are many other countries around the world, in hopes that the event does happen. And we want to obviously, be ready if it does go ahead. So look out for that in the coming days or weeks. Some information about those applications. That's pretty much it. Want to say a big thank you to you guys for jumping on the show. Obviously, always a lot of fun to talk about events in hindsight and what we learned and all that. We're all huge AOS nerds, as you guys can clearly see. So we love, live, and breathe and talking about it.
Everybody's paint table in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And my Stagadons and other fun things.
So
cool. Well, again, thanks to everyone who's watched. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon.